Welcome to episode 9 of Obsessed and So Obscure, a Matt Berry music podcast. I am Jessie, and as always, I am joined by Tara.
Hello.
And Courtney.
Hi.
Today we are going to discuss and break down the small hours. We will also have more of our Q&A with Maypoles drummer James Sedge on what it was like recording this album, as it's the only one of Matt's studio albums that was recorded with the band and not done exclusively in his home studio, playing all of the parts himself. I think by now I've made it extremely well known that this is my favorite album of Matt's, but as always, we don't always agree, so buckle up, kids. This one's gonna get heated. The Small Hours was released in September of 2016 on limited edition green vinyl. I think it was limited to 500 copies, and it has a beautiful gatefold sleeve.
This is really kind of a beautiful album. It was actually quietly reissued by Acid Jazz, I believe late last year. So this used to be a pretty rare find, and unfortunately it was just reissued on black vinyl, not on that gorgeous green that it was initially printed on. But this album's become a lot easier to get your hands on. The reissue was a gatefold as well. It's got a really nice kind of textured cover, and then the inside has some very cool candid photos of Matt and the Maypoles recording this album. You can see the fox that ate his pizza, who he alludes to in one of the songs we'll be discussing in a moment, and just some shots of them playing and kind of mixing the album at Rimshot Studios.
So it was weird how they did. I don't even really still understand how this whole reissue came about. I guess it was kind of a quiet reissue. This was the elusive one for me that I had, well, one of the two elusive ones for me that I had been searching for, and I couldn't find it. And then all of a sudden it started showing up in all the usual places on black. And everybody, I mean, me and Courtney and a couple other people were freaking out because two of our friends who are huge collectors of Matt's music didn't know that it actually came in black. Like, it was just rumored to have come in black. And then, so we all bought it right away. And then it slowly started creeping out. And then later, Acid Jazz announced it as a reissue of the Small Hours. But so I ordered two. I don't remember why I ordered two of the black ones.
Because at first we thought that the black was extremely rare, and we thought that we were getting our hands on this super limited black pressing, and then Acid Jazz just announced no.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Just kidding.
I didn't know that.
Just kidding. Yeah, so I have two of the black. One of them is still sealed. And then my friend Mess on the Mat from Instagram, Bree, she actually had two copies of the green, and she knew that I was really looking for the green. So she was kind enough to sell me her extra copy. So now I have it on green, and then I have two on black. So if anybody needs an extra copy, let me know. I may be able to hook you up with that. It was recorded with the Maypoles at Rimshot Studios in Kent, as well as the Center of Excellence, Matt's home studio in South London. There's a quote from Shindig magazine in late 2016 asking why he picked this particular Rimshot Studios. He said, "I picked the studio because there aren't many left that have 2-inch tape and the old analog desk." And he went on to say, "This time I wanted the whole thing to feel like a band and have that feel you can only get with human beings."
Yeah, and as we've already mentioned, Matt did play with his full band, the Maypoles, on this album, which is kind of a departure for him. As we've discussed previously, he typically plays all the instruments on his albums, with the exception of drums and some guest musicians. Here, he really did record live with the full band. He still handled really a lot of his usual guitars, acoustic and electric pianos, organs, synthesizers, but he also played with the rest of the Maypoles. Andy Vickery handled acoustic and electric guitars. Phil Scragg handled bass guitar. James Sedge, who we'll be quoting in a few minutes, handled drums and percussion. Cecilia Phage did backing vocals as usual, and Graham Mann played trombone and percussion. Additionally, there were several guest musicians on this album. Ben Castle played soprano saxophone, alto flute, and bass clarinet. Paul Jordanius played trumpet, and then Abby Naylor played tenor horn, and we'll be talking a little bit more about their contributions to the songs as we go. With regards to why he chose to play with his full band rather than handle the instrumentation on his own like he has in the past, Matt said to Shindig during that interview in 2016, "It's just that you want to do something different. They're such great players that it just made total sense to use them on the album. It was all pretty much set and everything was demoed to quite a detail. Even Night Terrors, if you listen to a demo of that with the live instruments, it's me doing everything to demonstrate what I wanted it to be, and they just bring it to life.
So we actually asked James Sedge about this. We asked what was the process like for recording The Small Hours, since Matt doesn't read music and therefore couldn't give sheet music to work off of. How did he convey what he wanted? James says, Matt gave me some great sounding demos to work from. I then wrote my own charts for me to follow in the studio, although I always try to memorize everything. I think it gives a better performance. Matt usually tells me to just do my thing when recording, but I try to always refer back to his demos. His instincts are always good. When musicians working together share similar influences, it makes it easier to get to the right part for the song. We would often use other music as a descriptor for the direction. For instance, we discussed Bitches Brew by Miles Davis before recording Night Terrors. It didn't end up sounding like it, but we were all pulling in the same direction. And then we asked if you could make any changes to the work you recorded with Matt, what would you change, if anything? And why? No, I wouldn't change anything. It's all part of the learning process, he said.
We also asked James, how would you describe your own style, and how does it complement Matt's songwriting? He told us, I love to play well-written songs, so it was fantastic to work with Matt. I also have a love of playing experimental music, so it felt very natural to play on some of Matt's longer songs that have many sections, like The Pheasant, Solstice, and Night Terrors.
Lastly, we asked James, has feedback you've given Matt resulted in changes to the final work? He said, on Matt's albums, he has a very clear idea of what he wants, so I do my best to make him happy. For Milkbone, some tracks were re-recorded after my drums to accommodate some of my ideas.
Matt spoke a lot in his interviews around the promotion of this album about how the themes of this album were informed not just by his insomnia, similar to his last album, Music for Insomniacs, but also by the small hours themselves, that period right before day breaks, where it's just kind of you and your thoughts, and you and your regrets, and you and your hopes. As we're going to talk about as we go through the songs on this album, those themes really inform many of the lyrics. He told Shindig in the same interview, there was one point when, and the record company would have gone mental, but it was going to be both sides. You know, the kind of journey through the night where you wake up with a start and you're worried about this or that. That was the first idea I had. But I knew after doing Music for Insomniacs that they didn't want another one of those for a while. But it all sort of made sense. It's kind of like all these things. They're always in the back room somewhere, and it's doing itself on its own.
From the same article from Shindig, he says, it's times where you might even be with someone, yet you feel more alone. It's all those kinds of feelings. Because I suffer from insomnia, I try not to make it the center of things, because then it's taken over. But it's a good thing to hang this on, because the course of a nighttime with all the solitude and the gray light and what comes of that is a thing that it becomes all about. Matt also says, in an interview with the Manchester Evening News, I suppose I've also been through some life-changing things between this and the album before, and I write about real things that happened to me, depending on how daring I am. Since I wrote the last album in 2013, my mom was very ill. I won a BAFTA. More people know who you are, and with that comes good and bad. I had more to say.
Something that is interesting and kind of unique among Matt's albums, in retrospect, is that he did a round of kind of retrospective interviews in late 2019 promoting his Gather Up Best Of set. And this is really the one album that he hasn't looked back on fondly or really had a whole lot of complimentary things to say about, looking back over his discography. When Hi-Fi Plus magazine asked in November 2021 if it was a challenge to make a record of lots of other people, he responded, "It was, and now I've done it, I don't need to do it again. I did it because I was expecting it to bring something new out, not just in the songwriting, but also in the playing and the sound. But I didn't have the kind of control I've got when I'm doing it all myself, so it wasn't as satisfying for me. Everyone did an amazing job. It's all about having the sounds that you hear in your head and making sure that your finished piece is exactly like that. Small Hours is the only album where I can't say that's the case."
Y'all, that makes me so sad.
Me too.
Because I think this is, I don't know, I think it's perfection. And it makes me so sad that he doesn't feel that way about it.
Well, like, it's your favorite, and to hear him say that, it's like, and it's not that the album's not good, or maybe even that he thinks it's not good. It's just he didn't, it wasn't exactly how he wanted. So he's such a perfectionist too, that the little things that he's like, oh no, that should have been like this. and he probably doesn't want to listen to it.
He dwells on it.
Like, niggles at him.
Yeah. Like, and he's a self-professed control freak. So I can totally see how working in a group environment, as much as you say, this is what I want, and it's impossible to convey exactly what's in your head to somebody else, regardless of how good of a musician they are. It probably was like, okay, that's good, close enough. But I also think that maybe it was the pressure of working with other people and directing other very, very talented musicians. It was probably a whole lot of stress that he wasn't necessarily prepared for nor comfortable with. And I don't know if maybe that made him give in on a few things that weren't exactly how he wanted in his head, but it still makes me sad. So I wouldn't.
He's never done it again, so he's never recorded that way again. So obviously, he did not enjoy it. No,
he stepped way outside of his comfort zone to do it. So it just, I don't know, makes me sad though.
And before we dive into the songs themselves, it's, I think, kind of worth noting that he also really stepped out of his comfort zone lyrically on this album. Mm-hmm. This is the first album that really is driven primarily by personal themes as opposed to kind of mystical themes or the terrors of the countryside or songs about nature, songs about a lot of his kind of pet obsessions. This song is really just about him and his life and his emotions. It's, I would say, still the most vulnerable album he's recorded, even counting some of the albums which came after, which are really quite vulnerable. This one is deeply personal. And of course, laying yourself bare like that is going to feel pretty exposing and maybe something that he's not entirely comfortable with in retrospect.
Right. Like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Because it's also not shrouded. Like, his lyrics are not really shrouded in a lot of imagery, like his first two. It just is what it is. And it's very easy to figure out what he's actually talking about. So
another point, too, is that this was actually the last album that he has toured. He has not toured since 2016.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know exactly why. There's grumbles and rumors as to why he doesn't tour anymore, but only he knows the real reason. And it's also sad because it always seemed like something he very much enjoyed. But then when this was done, he didn't do it again.
He did get up on stage with Emma Noble playing Beatmaker back in March of this year, March 2022. So that's a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Anyway, are we ready to talk about the music? Courtney, did you have anything else to add to that?
I don't think so. Just that I will, Matt, if you're listening, put out a plea for probably the 25th time since we've started this podcast to tour.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who want to see you back on stage. And let's dive into the songs. Let's break this down.
So we're starting with the intro. It's just, it's an intro.
Short, this one.
It is very short, and to me it just sounds like an orchestra warming up, and it just kind of builds into intensity, but it very perfectly flows right into the first song.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I wrote too. It sounds like an orchestra tuning up, and it really sets the stage for the jazzy sounds which are to come on this albom. I didn't give this any star ratings. It's only about 20-25 seconds. So
I didn't either.
It's really more of a
it wasn't long enough for me to form any sort of opinion.
Exactly.
I have an opinion. It was 4 out of 5. I thought it was one of his good little intros. It was short and sweet.
It's super short, so we know you would like it, because anything over 30 seconds, you start to lose your attention span.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
Okay,
at least
let's
6
see
minutes
what I
in her.
think. Let's see what I think about Night Terrors, because it was 9 minutes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
So from the intro, we jump right into an organ riff, and that takes us into One by One.
One by one, I wave them good it shines before it dries, and here we go again. But I'm sober and I'll see my whole life saving by a love.
This song really showcases Matt's love of the organ. It's kind of first and forward in the song. This is one of the two songs from the album that they also produced videos for. And this video is really him sitting at an organ in kind of an industrial looking field, just again kind of showcasing his musicianship and really kind of spotlighting for anyone who wasn't aware that he plays the instruments on this album, that he is the not just the voice, but the instrumentation that you hear, at least in the organ. For me, this song, I'm going to be saying this a lot over the course of this album. It falls a little flat. The songwriting is catchy, but it's kind of anonymous. Like, this is another thing that I'm going to be saying more than once on this album, but it feels like anyone could have written this song. It feels like what makes Matt's songwriting so unique and so distinctive on past albums is kind of gone. This is just sort of a mid-tempo pop rock song. The lyrics are interesting. They kind of deal with themes of loneliness, aging. He talks about his hair falling out, sitting with painful emotions. He mentions being sober as he sits with these painful emotions, which is kind of intriguing. But the song itself just doesn't set me on fire.
I love this song. I agree musically, and I think it's sort of that way with a lot of songs on this album. It's kind of nondescript as far as genre goes. I don't mind that because I think the lyrics are extremely good on this album. It's like, to me, he's just talking about like an endless string of relationships that ultimately end, and he winds up alone. And then the line, "the sea, it shines before it dries," is really, really interesting to me because it's poetic, and I'm not 100% sure what he means by it. I think it could be a metaphor for like tears and loss, and then ultimately getting over it and starting something new. You also mentioned the music video for this. I think it's really, really cool. This is my favorite music video. It was directed by Gerard Georgie Cole and produced by Ben Meadows. And it takes place in like a kind of an industrial site outside in kind of a field. And Matt is wearing the polka dot shirt that I absolutely love. He's worn that a lot. I've seen him reuse it. And he's playing
I've referred to this shirt to Jesse as his soccer dad shirt.
I love it. The man looks good in a button-down. I can't help it. But I really love the polka dot shirt. He looks good in a
button-down. I'm not sure that he has polka dots in him, but
he does.
That's not relevant.
He does. The polka dots work. I wish there were more videos of his other songs that were more like this. I think that this one is just really, really well done, and it just highlights the song so well.
Yeah, love the video. There is a random baby in the video. Have you guys noticed that?
I think it's Ben Meadows.
It's not a random baby.
It's Ben Meadows.
Ben Meadows' baby. Yeah.
Aww. Well, it's a very cute baby,
Raymond,
but yeah, I saw it today. I was like, where did that baby come from? That's adorable.
Yeah, okay. So, I was listening to this, so again, I agree with you. I love the video. I saw it when it first came out. I remember it and being like, oh my god, like, I love this friggin' video. I do not like this song. So...
I know. So, I think it's, like, the chorus that really froze me. I don't think it's very good. I think it's, like, not a good catch. Like, it's just kind of... It's too simple for Matt. I don't know. I really like, there's some really great, like, musical elements through, like, the verses and stuff, and I like the lyrics. The quote you said about the sea shines before it dries, that's beautiful. Like, I think it's just the chorus. I don't really like it. So I was actually listening to this morning. My husband was next to me while I was, like, setting this up, and I was listening to some of the songs, and he was like, one by one was playing, and he's like, you really like this one though, right? And I'm like, no. Like, I don't think it's gonna go over well either. So my husband really likes it. I give it a 2.5 out of 5.
That's exactly what I gave it to. 2.5 out of 5. It's sort of
High five,
average in
Courtney.
all ways.
Okay, well, I agree with Tara's husband because I gave it 5 stars.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite ones on the album.
Sorry.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
not sword,
no,
but, like,
no.
also sword.
I was preparing myself for this because I know how Courtney feels about this one. I'm not 100% sure how you feel, Tara, so I was prepared. I was preparing myself. I put on my big girl pants this morning because I have to say I have still feeling the hurt from last episode with Take My Hand. And okay, moving on. This is going to be a whole new level of hurt.
She sits up at night and she thinks about it. She's like, I can't believe she doesn't like the live version of Take My Hand.
Yeah.
I thought we were best friends.
Totally keeps me up at night. Anyway.
I don't dislike it. It's just okay.
No. It's just
There's
okay.
no animosity there.
No. She doesn't hate it like woman.
Nothing personal.
Moving on to... yeah, that's true. Moving on to probably the most contentious song on this entire album. So we'll get it out of the way right at the beginning. The Peach and the Melon.
The peach said to her sister, "Oi there, melon, this is heaven. All I have to do is sit here shapely, and they love me. The books you read from the church you're at aren't gospel, more like bullshit. Preoccupied with looking up when it's so clear. It's all down here. Mrs. Wagner's pies were full of locals, bifocals. The fox came in and woke me up. Damn creature ate my pizza. But here's a man who'll shave his wife's head clean. No more of a man I'll see, more than I'll ever be. Just a man, a misshaped piece from our world.
There's a couple of things that Matt has said in interviews about this. Back to that Manchester Evening News article, he says, it all begins with a song called The Peach and the Melon, in which Matt recounts watching his dad having to shave his mom's head after she was diagnosed with cancer. The experience got Matt thinking about the precious things and about religion, insomnia, and loss. And then there was also a podcast in September in 2016. It's the Midnight Chats podcast. And I'm kind of just summing up, but he talks about, the song is about the bullshit of religion, someone telling you what to do and how to think, and it's about the wasted time spent listening to others. There's nothing up there. It's all down here, which he literally says within the lyrics of the song. The books you read from the church you're at aren't gospel, more like bullshit, preoccupied with looking up when it's so clear it's all down here. So that's quite literally what he talks about, the bullshit of religion. Yep. He then goes on to talk about Mrs. Wagner's pies are full of locals and bifocals. There was also a quote, in the Midnight Chats podcast, he talked more about this. He said that the Mrs. Wagner's Pies is a reference to the Simon & Garfunkel song America, which is actually my favorite Simon & Garfunkel song. So when I heard Mrs. Wagner's Pies, that's immediately what my head went to, was America. But I didn't know what they were at all. I just never thought about it before. So he, in this Midnight Chats podcast, said he remembered hearing that Mrs. Wagner's Pies when he was a kid, and it just kind of stuck with him for some reason. He said he took it for granted when he was a kid too, because why would you not? And then he actually asked a friend in the US about it, and they told him that it's a cheese there. I think he was like, his friend was shocked that he was even asking this question. Yeah. He said it's a cheap
Fair.
Yeah, fair for sure. His friend told him it's a cheap pie that you would buy at a railway station. And he said he needed to know what it was because it was said in the song like everybody would know what a Mrs. Wagner's pie was. Well, I had no idea. None of us did. I don't understand how his friend would have had any idea about it. Kind of calling a little bit of bullshit on that.
Probably worth noting here because Jesse actually dug up a YouTube video. I'm sure you can all find it.
I will be posting it.
Mrs. Wagner's Pies.
I will be posting it because I'm going to extrapolate from it momentarily.
On the history of Mrs. Wagner's Pies, which I watched and then immediately forgot everything about because, not gonna lie, not scintillating stuff. No old goose fare. But Mrs. Wagner's Pies went out of business in 1968.
Yeah.
The same year that Simon and Garfunkel sang about them.
Right.
It makes sense that they would know about it, but
Also,
how did his friend just know about it off the top of his head?
exactly.
Yeah.
So the Mrs. Wagner's Pie, because I am now a certified expert on Mrs. Wagner's Pies.
We all are.
They all
thanks to
are.
you.
Right, yes, because you watched the video too. You got the same certificate. Mrs. Wagner's Pie Company was founded in Ocean Grove, New Jersey in the 1890s, and then they later expanded to Brooklyn and Newark, New Jersey. So Matt, in that Midnight Chats podcast, compared them to Ginster's pie, which I didn't know what those were, and they're actually, I think, more like Cornish pasties, so like meat pies. Mrs. Wagner's pies were actually fruit pies, and they did come in like full pies, but also single servings pies. And like Courtney said, they went out of business in 1968. So I don't know where this friend would have heard about them. And also, unless this friend was from like the Northeast or the Midwest, because I think that's where they were distributed. It was only in the Northeast and up to like Detroit and Chicago. And I don't really know if they were distributed anywhere else. The video didn't go into that much detail, but
Why
I don't
couldn't
know.
you have just admitted he Googled it?
I don't know. But
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Why this whole story?
Matt does funny things
It's like this
this
little
sometimes.
humble brag, like, I've got an American friend who knows all about Mrs.
Yeah.
Wagner's Pies.
Fucking 60s.
Right, and you've got two Americans sitting here like, bullshit. Nobody knows about Mrs. Wagner's Pies except for Simon and Garfunkel and anybody that was in like the New York, New Jersey area in the 60s and before. Nobody else knows about that. Also, there's a line after that about a fox waking him up and then stealing his pizza. And this actually happened. I don't know if he actually ate his pizza, but when he lived in London, well, when he recorded this, he was living in London, and he tweeted that there was a fox on his balcony. He took pictures of it and tweeted them, and then also in the gatefold of the album, there's a picture of the fox, and he actually thanked the fox in the album acknowledgments, which I think is really funny.
You
Fox
stole
made
one of my
cute little
burning
lyric.
questions, which was going to be, was there a real fox that ate your pizza?
I don't know, but I also have questions about it. Good.
He didn't mention the fox eating his pizza
No.
on
Yeah.
Twitter.
No.
Maybe it's a symbolic pizza.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Like, did the fox actually get into your flat? Because the picture that he tweeted and the one that's on the album is just him outside of, like, the sliding glass door. So, like, unless his pizza was being stored on the balcony, were you
If he
really
left the
going to go
pizza on the balcony? That's on him.
Right? Were you really going to go back and eat that pizza anyway?
Yeah.
At this point, too, he was living on the Thames, on the river.
Mhm.
And so, like, there's got to be birds, right? I don't know if they have seagulls there, but
Well,
there's got to be.
there were, because remember there's also things that he tweeted with the plastic owls that he was trying to keep stuff off of his
Yeah, the
off of
birds
the
off,
balcony.
yeah.
Right.
So don't store your pizza on your balcony and expect for creatures to not eat it. I mean,
He fed that fox. Come on. He gave that fox that
You
pizza
brought
and
this on
he was like,
yourself.
musically, this is going to come back to me somehow. Yeah.
yeah.
This is going to be good creatively.
Sorry for
I
stealing
do
your brain
appreciate that he was upset enough about something eating his pizza that he put it in his song lyrics, because I would share that sentiment.
Yeah.
I get really, really excited about pizza and really upset when I'm expecting pizza and there's not pizza.
Yeah.
So
You'll never get over it, just like
Something
he's
we
never
have in
got over
common.
it.
Right. It's funny. I don't know. Okay. And then we get to the part where he talks about the Manson girls.
It's time to act, cause the Manson girls are talking about walking. All they want is ice cream, shoes and jelly and the telly.
he says it's time to act because Manson girls are talking about walking. All they want is ice cream, shoes, and jelly, and the telly.
So he also mentions in the Midnight Chats podcast, he talked about this line about the Manson girls. And he says, Manson nearly lost the reins with the Manson girls. They started to grumble. That's when he told them the race war was about to happen, etc. If anybody knows anything about me, I am deeply fascinated by 3 different topics. One of them is cults. The second one is serial killers. And the third one is the paranormal, but like specifically hauntings. So the story of Charles Manson, like, very neatly compresses and encompasses 2 of the 3 of those topics, the cults and the serial killers. But also, if you ask Trent Reznor about the time he spent at living at this Yellow Drive house where Sharon Tate was murdered, he'll probably add the paranormal aspect into that too. Oh. So I need to know, Matthew Charles Berry, where in the fuck did you find this information? Because I have read Helter Skelter, which is basically the Bible of Charles Manson and the family. I just finished reading another biography by Jeff Gunn. It's called Manson, The Life and Times of Charles Manson, which is kind of a biography in a way. I've watched documentaries about it. I have never seen anything that would suggest that these girls were anything but devoted to him in every way. So he mentions in an article from The Guardian in October 2016, he said, I just watched this documentary about Charles Manson, which was 6 Degrees of Helter Skelter, which was released in 2009. It's on YouTube. It's very in-depth, and it blasts away any sort of the cool aspects of the family, the rock and roll aspect, because there really weren't any. It outlines how Manson noticed that the young girls were starting to get bored, talking about things like ice cream and what was on the television. Up to that point, he tried to convince them that things like that didn't mean shit and they didn't need them. So he knew he was in trouble, that he was losing his grip on them, and that's when he decided to get them to do terrible things. I watched this documentary, 6 Degrees of Helter Skelter. Nowhere in that documentary does it mention any of that. So I don't know if The Guardian just guessed that that was the documentary he was talking about, or if that really was, and he has somehow dreamed this information, because I cannot find it. I know there are people who know Matt that listen to this podcast. If somebody can please let me sleep at night and please ask him, because this is literally driving me nuts.
This is going back a long time, like a long time.
I cannot.
Like a long time.
This is an obsession that needs to end, and it can end with somebody who knows Matt asking him the simple question and getting back to me.
It'll take 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Just, hey, Matt, there's this girl, and she's crazy because you said this thing about the Mansons in an interview that you don't remember. Can you just, where did you hear that? Or did you make it up? Did you pull it out of your ass? Just, that's all she needs to know. We won't even broadcast it here.
No, I just need to know for my own personal, so I can put this to rest once and for all. And
it would put us all at peace.
You're like, Matt wouldn't lie about this. It has to be true, and it piques all of my interests.
It does.
Matt, the haunting.
I've always been fascinated by the Manson story and the family, and just like how this happens. Like, how do these seemingly normal girls start following this guy who's, I mean, he's charismatic, but that's really the only thing he has going for him, and I don't get it. And then
if Matt Berry told us to murder people, we wouldn't do it. Like,
I would
Matt
not
Berry
do
has
it.
all the charisma. I wouldn't do a murder. Courtney, would you do a murder for Matt Berry?
It depends who he's asking me to murder.
Well, okay.
That's a fair
There are people
answer,
who I wouldn't need my arm twisted too hard to murder.
I just want to say I would not commit murder. I
probably definitely wouldn't. But now that you said that, Courtney, I'm like, actually, you know what? There probably are people that have it coming.
I would not do a murder.
I mean, how strong is my alibi? How persuasive is Matt? There's a lot of factors.
Jesse,
to
you have to delete
here.
all of
I'm not
this
ruling
in
anything
case
out.
Matt needs us to murder somebody. Just delete all this. Don't put it out.
And that's how Courtney lost her social work license in the state of Texas.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
We kid. Courtney's not murdering anybody.
Probably not.
Probably not. Anyway.
Probably not.
Probably not.
So this song is like
not nearly that stealthy.
No.
We also have like
think of.
things like DNA and stuff that they didn't have in the 60s. So yeah. Plus,
it's a great time for murdering back
Texas is a hanging state, man. You don't commit.
Yeah.
You don't do murders in Texas. You do murders in places where they have the death penalty. I don't know. What is your
state lines?
What is the execution of choice in Texas? Is it
lethal injection?
Yeah.
Lethal injection, yeah. But then, like, the chemicals expired a few years ago, and so there are these lawsuits because they were trying to inject people with expired chemicals, or I'm probably messing up the details of that.
I vaguely remember that.
That's true.
And I think they don't want to do them. It's like there's not companies to take over because they're like...
because we shouldn't be fucking executing people in 2022?
Yeah,
maybe because it shouldn't be a thing? I don't know. That's my personal opinion. My opinion does not reflect those of others of this podcast.
I don't know. Some people deserve a bullet in the head. I don't know.
Well, it's a good thing Canada...
Courtney and I are going to be like a hitman team.
Canada doesn't have the death penalty, does it?
No, they don't. They let people off for shit that they should be fucking in jail for life for. It's terrible.
No, we don't do that.
And Texas imprisons people for life for shit
maximum.
like pot.
Right, exactly. Well, so does Florida. We still have the death penalty too. I mean, it was. I think Old Sparky is still. I think it's still an option if you so choose to be in the electric chair.
Oh God.
I don't know. It's brutal. I don't get it.
It's a brutal way to die. Holy fuck. I don't understand it. Anyways, let's friggin' focus. Because we've gone off on one of our famous tangents.
It's been a tangent.
A little bit of a tangent. Peach and the Melon. It's the best song on the album. I think it's so fucking good. When I got this on vinyl and I got it on the re-release, I don't know how, like, I hadn't like listened to this whole album. So when it came out and I like put it on the vinyl, I just listened to the Peach and Melon over and over again. I'd like run back and I'd like put it back on. I had heard some of the, I don't know why, again, it's weird. I had heard like most of this album, but Peach and the Melon, for some reason, like, I don't know if it never came up on Spotify or YouTube, just never had really heard it, and I was obsessed with it when I had.
That's kind of crazy.
I know. That's, because like, or, you know what I'm actually wondering? I can't find it. I can't find my Small Hours album. Maybe I do have the original, because, like, I remember... No, I wouldn't have the original. Just cut this shit, because I'm
You have the original. That's worth a lot of money. You should probably dig that out.
Yeah, you should.
Don't have the original.
Possibly
I didn't
make
have
an effort
vinyl
to
in
find
2016. I didn't have... I only got it about 4 years ago? I'm gonna have to fucking find it. I doubt it. I think I would remember, because it's, like, a really pretty turquoise color, eh?
Yeah, it's green. It's like forest green.
This is the best song on the album. Hands down. Fight me about it.
That's shocking. Okay. Courtney, what do you have to say?
It's one of the better ones.
Jesse's like, what?
Like, stunned by this right now.
Yeah.
It's one of the better ones, and it never made a whole lot of impression on me until I started listening to this album basically on loop, preparing for this podcast. I do like kind of the poppy sound. It's almost got a very slight Northern Soul influence, which we know is something that Matt really loves, with that kind of swingy, syncopated beat. And I like the stream of consciousness lyrics that we've already picked to pieces, so I won't revisit that. I think it's cool how this is almost like a state of Matt's mind. It's just everything that he's kind of been thinking about and obsessing about around making this record. We didn't pull this quote, but there is an interview from around the same time where he talks about how when you listen to his music, you can really tell the things that he's obsessed with around that time, and I think this song is a really clear illustration of that. This is funny to say about a song that's really kind of slight musically, but it feels kind of epic to me. It feels longer than 2 minutes, 58 seconds. I actually had to check the time.
Is that really? That's all it is? 2 minutes and 58 seconds?
Just 2 minutes, 58 seconds.
Oh, wow, you're right. It does feel much longer than that.
And I think it's partly because the lyrics jump around as much as they do, but it also just has sort of like a big, bold feeling to it that's kind of more than the sum of its parts. But that all being said, despite all of that praise, this song hasn't really wedged itself into my mind. Like I said, I sort of tend to forget it's there unless I'm preparing for a podcast on this album. So, I don't know. Good, not great. Not one of my favorites.
I really like what you said about it being a stream of consciousness. I think that's really perfectly describes it. I said, this is one of those songs that people either love it or you hate it, or I guess in our case, you're midline, so I guess that could go midline, yeah. I was under the impression that most people really don't like this song, so I'm actually really surprised that you both kind of do. I think lyrically it's super interesting, but it's all over the place, so that's why I think what you said about it being kind of a stream of consciousness is really, really smart. I kind of have new respect for it. Not that I don't like it, because I really do. It's quite obvious you guys don't listen to albums start to finish, too. You must listen to them, like, on shuffle or something, because it's the second song.
No, I totally do. I just don't listen to this one start to finish.
Oh, do you, like, just kind of
like a lot of this one?
Skip it. Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
How many stars did you give it?
5 out of 5.
Whoa.
Hell yeah. That
really...
echoed. It was so loud.
No, that's like super... I did not see that coming. Courtney, what about you?
Yeah.
3.5. Like I said, good, not great, not one of my favorites, but it's good.
I was hoping for a 4 out of you.
I gave it 3.5 too. I do really like this song. I think it was more of the lyrics. It's not cohesive, and I think that's the thing that bugs me about it.
I love that about it. I love that it's just nonsense. It's just like you said, the stream of consciousness was perfect.
It does. It really does make a lot more sense when you think about it that way than you just think about all of the parts that don't really fit together. Very cool.
Well, it fits a lot too with the small hours theme of kind of the thoughts that pop in your head when you're half asleep in those early morning
That's
hours,
really
right?
true.
This is probably what's floating in his head.
That's
at 5
really
in the morning
true.
when he can't sleep.
So, moving on to Say It Again.
Say it again, 'cause it made me smile. That's something I've not done for a while. The weather feels hot for this time of year, though suddenly feels so cold. A rat stopped a foot from my bed. Nothing to do but look straight at it. Must be a sign or something you said. Suddenly feels so cold. Bow out, change my name. In fact, turn around, leave and don't come back.
The song's kind of a bummer. I don't know. It's just sad. It makes me.
It's a bummer on
sad.
multiple levels.
Oh no, Courtney.
I like that it starts with that squeaky guitar. The intro has got this squeaky guitar string sound. I love that sound for some reason. But you can really hear it on this, especially with headphones on. You can really hear that squeakiness.
Oh, I love the lyrics. You don't like the lyrics of this one? No?
I don't really like anything about this one.
Okay, that's fine.
I-
You're loud.
I like Cecilia's vocals at the end, and I like the fade out at the end.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
That's about all I have to say for this song.
So the line, say it again because it made me smile, that's something I've not done for a while. So this album, I didn't know anything about Matt at all until like the end of 2020. So right at the height of COVID, I started, kind of went backwards through his catalog. I stumbled on the IT crowd and then it kind of went downhill from there. But very quickly, I started listening to his music. And I think the reason that this particular album resonates with me so much is that it came at a time in my life where it just hit me so hard. And I didn't even realize, actually, I couldn't verbalize how and why it hit me so hard until literally the other day when I was driving in the car and I was like, shit, that's the reason why. And I think it was when I was listening to the song, actually, because I just feel like at that time and even since then, and it's not something that I've ever felt prior, it's just that feeling of being completely stuck in time, especially, living in Florida during COVID. We didn't have lockdown at all, which I know some of you who had very strict lockdowns would probably be like, well, that's fucking awesome. You weren't locked down.
No, it's stupid.
It wasn't awesome at all, because not only did we not have any sort of lockdown, our governor was actively working against any sort of restrictions for COVID, even for private businesses. And being that Florida is a state with a very high senior citizen population, including my parents and my in-laws, it was a very scary time. Like, he wouldn't allow mask mandates. He wouldn't enforce any sort of a mask mandate because he was actively working against it. So I just remember sitting at home and quite literally feeling stuck. Like, I don't want to get COVID. This was before vaccines. I have to make sure that my parents are safe. So I was shopping for them because luckily we live in the same city. So I was doing all of their grocery shopping and dropping it off at their house and fighting because people wouldn't even fucking wear a mask when they went to the grocery store. So you're literally taking your life in your hands anytime you left the house. And it was just an awful fucking feeling. And this album, when I heard it, just that line especially is, I think, when I fell in love with this album. Just say it again because it made me smile, something I've not done for a while. And I felt that so fucking deeply. There's another line where he says, a rat stood a foot from my bed, nothing to do but look straight at it, which I kind of feel like is a strange line. But when you think about it, I think it kind of is like because of that, you know, it's the vulnerability you feel when you're being in bed and you hear something or you see something and you don't really have the ability to do anything about it. So like all you can do is just sit up or stare straight at it and not be able to like do anything. And then he goes,
like general apathy.
Yeah. And then he goes on to say, bow out, change my name, turn around, leave, and don't come back. It's, you know, like running away from your issues and just start a new life. And yeah, the song is just straight melancholy. Musically and lyrically, it is melancholy.
It's a bummer. It's a
It is
bummer.
Bummer indeed.
That's what I think. I like it. Like I like the lyrics. I like the kind of I don't know. It's kind of in your face, and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I also like the end where you think it's over, and then it kind of continues. I like that kind of about Matt's music where he does shit like that.
It does. It has like a more of like an upbeat little outro to it. I kind of like that. Courtney, what did you give this one?
So I gave this a 1.5. and and just to kind of explain myself, first of all, I totally respect how much this song means to you, and I think means to a lot of people. And it really is a pretty solid encapsulation of the album's themes in a lot of ways. My issue is just that it kind of feels half-formed. This feels to me like a rough draft or a demo. Musically, there's not a lot going on, and I get it. I get that's the intent. I get that he kept this sparse for a reason, but it doesn't work for me. It feels sleepy, and not in an atmospheric way, in a way that makes me want to fall asleep. Because I'm bored. It's a boring song, is what I'm saying. I do like I mentioned earlier, Cecilia's vocals at the end, and I like that fade out that feels like kind of a jam session. To me, that's actually a lot more interesting than the actual song. I don't mind the lyrics. I think they probably make more sense in Matt's head than they do for me. The line about the weather feeling hot for this time of year, but suddenly feels so cold. I just put a big question mark by that. Maybe it's my own deficit. I can't quite make sense of what he was getting at there. It sounds like a first draft to me.
I think that's really valid that it sounds like a first draft. I think it is sparse. I don't know if that was the intention or not. The part I agree with the temperature thing. I kind of just thought of that as, and I agree, like what he had in his head maybe didn't resonate that well to the song overall. I think some of it did, but I don't know. And specifically that temperature part, I think it's, to me, it kind of was just that feeling like shit, kind of, you know, it's hot outside, but I feel cold. Like I feel cold inside, feel dead inside.
I live in Central Texas. That's a feeling I know very, very well. But as I'm sure do you living in Florida.
Yeah. So that's how I interpreted it. I don't really know either. That's one of the few lines in this whole thing that's really kind of shrouded. And I don't know if it was just because if it was meant to be shrouded or if it made more sense to him than it made to anybody else, which is popular. It's possible. I mean, he wrote it, so obviously it's going to make more sense to him. But overall, I gave it 4 stars. Like I really love this song just because of kind of, I feel it.
I get that. There's a lot of songs coming up later in his discography on albums that we've yet to talk about that really hit me in that exact same way and that speak to my life in the same way you're describing. Yeah. There just aren't a lot on this album, and I wish there were because I know how much this album means to a lot of people, including you and Tara.
I mean, and that's it. It's not going to happen. And not everybody gets the same thing out of everything. This one just happened to, if I had listened to this when it came out, if I had listened to it at a different time in my life, I may feel the same way. Like, just take it for what it is, and I may not have really loved it. But I think it's just because I needed that kind of music. I needed to feel validated by somebody who has also felt it. For other reasons, obviously, but I don't know. It meant a lot. I think that's why it means a lot. It's just because I feel that all the time.
The next song, Gone for Good. For me, this is at the point in the album where I'm like, is Matt okay?
After a whole night of hell, could be day, you could tell. I listen to the voices deep in my head. They call me weak, a loser and a coward. I shouldn't talk to myself. I shouldn't talk to myself. After a whole night of hell, could be spring, you could tell. I have these dreams of emptiness and bloodshed. I lie awake, convinced I'm on my deathbed. Did you hear what I said? Did you hear what they said? Like fire and wind and rain and sun, there's nothing to be done. I'm here, then I'm gone for good.
This whole album makes me question if he's okay.
Yeah. Like, he says afterwards, he's kind of like, oh, I don't really like this album. I'm like, because you were seriously probably going through some shit to have written all this stuff. Like, everything's kind of a little bit of a bummer, but like he says, like, it's, you know, nobody wants to hear about the good stuff. Like, I'm winning BAFTAs left and right, you know? But yeah, like, I really like the lyrics of this one. I listen to the voices deep in my head. They call me weak, a loser, and a coward. I shouldn't talk to myself. But this song makes me kind of sad.
Yeah, this song is just straight self-doubt and self-loathing. That's what it is. It has a really funky musical beat. This is one of my favorite songs musically on the whole album.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I do really, really love the chorus. Like fire and wind and rain and sun, there's nothing to be done. I'm here and then I'm gone. I'm here, then I'm gone for good. I think it's just kind of like, it's like the elements, like you can't really change them. It just is what it is. And when your time is up, it's up. So it's just, it's a funky sounding song and it's super dark and self-deprecating.
So, I relate a lot. And again, you find pieces of yourself in music, right? So when he says, after a whole night of hell, could be spring, who could tell? I have these dreams of emptiness and bloodshed. I lie awake convinced I'm on my deathbed. That last line really stuck to me because I have been sick really badly on and off with stuff that they could never really figure out what it was. And to me, I'm sure that's not how he meant it, but for me, it was the kind of dealing with actual physical illness where you're like, this is it. I'm gonna friggin' die. And so that kind of always stuck out to me, but I don't think that's what he means by it, but it just hit me like that.
I don't know.
Well, he's so private. He's never spoken about his health. I mean, there could be elements of that.
And we know that there's
really
been
don't know.
plenty of times, too, where he's gotten super hungover because it was stuff that he tweeted about and literally felt like he was going to die. So it could be part of that, too. Like, I always took that as part of, like, because he says after a whole night of hell, I'm thinking he's out, like, drinking heavily and then doesn't know where he is in time or space and feels like he's going to die.
Yeah.
So.
See, I always kind of took that the opposite way. I always took that as a reference to insomnia and that sort of that feeling when you're half asleep, half awake, sort of been tossing and turning, and you're just mentally and physically exhausted.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you have dreams of emptiness and bloodshed, just all the darkest, kind of most morbid shit that's poking around in your head kind of comes out and comes to the forefront.
Yeah.
That it's a feeling I know very well.
Uh-huh.
So that's actually one of, not just my favorite lines on this album, but one of my favorite lines in general about lying awake, convinced you're on your deathbed. It's just so evocative to me.
So overall, I don't think there's a whole lot to this song, but I think because this one is my favorite, well, not my favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorite songs musically overall. I gave this one 4 stars.
Yep, me too.
I gave it 3. You said that the song is kind of poppy and upbeat. To me, it's almost like a slight reggae beat. Like, this is basically a reggae song. And I know this has come up a few times. I know on Opium and even again on the end part of Music for Insomniacs that Matt likes to... Oh, and on Sorry as well, on the live album. That Matt likes to dabble in these kind of reggae beats. And I get that that's a very culturally informed thing, being from the UK, that ska and reggae are much more a part of the cultural landscape than they necessarily are here. I still am not convinced that's in his wheelhouse. Like, that is something I said all the way back on Jet Setter, and it is something I hold to. Like, he is a man of many, many talents. I'm not sure that he has reggae within him, but he keeps trying. God bless him.
That one, he like literally said black magic reggae, and that didn't work.
Yeah. It reminds me of Ghost Town song that got taken out of Toast to London.
Oh, Toast. The special song, Ghost Town.
And it was only like played, I guess, live or something. I remember watching it and it being the Ghost Town. Do you remember the good old... It was also in Father Ted. There was a part with that in it. So I've always loved that song.
And Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. So I think that's probably part of their, like, you know, cultural, I don't know, music stuff in the UK. And we just don't get it. So yeah, and it was... I don't remember hearing it here, but I think my husband got me onto it, and then we heard it in Father Ted, and then in Toast, and then, like you said, in Shaun of the Dead, and I was just, like, so excited, and apparently they didn't have the rights for it, so it got taken out.
Where was it in Shaun of the Dead? I don't remember that.
It's in the intro, where you see all the people who later become zombies, sort of going through the motions.
I don't remember the intro of it now. Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it. I love that movie.
If memory serves, I think it's just an instrumental version. It's the sort of reference that someone in the UK would probably get right away.
Yeah, I
because
definitely
that song is so much better known there.
Yeah.
I just like the Specials a lot, the band who did it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have picked up on that.
One of my favorite film-going experiences ever is a couple of years back, I got to watch the entire Cornetto trilogy, so Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, with Edgar Wright and basically all the talent involved present, and they gave us cornettos to eat.
That's so cool. So like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and stuff were there too?
That's who I was blanking. Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost.
That's so cool.
Oh, we should probably mention, this was also released as a promo single. I don't know, there's a whole lot more to say about that, but this is one of the... I think it might have actually been the first. I'm not sure about that, but it was one of the songs they released as a promo single to promote the album.
I wouldn't have picked that for sure.
Was it this one and One by One? Were those the two singles from this?
And Lord Above.
Oh yeah, Lord Above.
I'm not sure if Lord Above was released as a single, but it did have a video, which we'll talk about.
So next up is Beam Me Up, and I just want to say, if a song could be a spirit animal, this would be my spirit animal.
If there's anyone there, then make yourself known. It's arrogant to think I'm spinning alone. Take me with you, I'm done here, I'm through. I'm lousy all around, though dealt a fair hand. It's the simple things I never understand. Lights in the sky, what, when, how, why. The ship draws near, and I'm over here. Beam me up, 'cause I made a mess of it. It's all gone wrong, so I guess it's time to quit. Take me, 'cause it's over. I'm desperate, and I'm nowhere. It's a dumb way out, but I suppose it's something you know. Idea what the hell I'm meant to do. Help me, I'm over. I'm desperate, and I'm nowhere.
This song, it's just everything. It's about, there's got to be more to life than this. You just want to escape everything. He says, lousy all around, but dealt a fair hand. It's the simple things I'll never understand. It just makes so much sense. It's hard to explain why. I just, you didn't come from less. You didn't come from poverty. You just, you had a normal upbringing, but there's just like simple things in life that you just don't feel like you'll ever kind of fully grasp. It really resonates with me. The chorus, beam me up 'cause I made a mess of it. It's all gone wrong, so I guess it's time to quit. Take me 'cause it's over. I'm desperate and I'm nowhere. Again, the feeling of being stuck in a situation or dwelling on something you've said or done in the past, and you just want to escape literally and emotionally and start fresh, but you can't because you're just there. And then he says, it's a dumb way out, but I suppose it's something new. No idea what the hell I'm meant to do. This is just, I think I've actually posted this before on Instagram, that the no idea what the hell I'm meant to do, I think about that every day. Like, what is my life? I don't know. It's not this, that's for sure. I really love the music in this one, and it's like a heavy pop rock vibe, and he really just belts it. And I just think it's so good.
This one gets stuck in my head a lot, and especially the past couple days where I've just been listening to it a lot. I just keep, singing especially the chorus in my head, and singing it and dancing around. And I find it's a really fun song. Like, if you weren't listening to the lyrics, you're like, this is like so upbeat and fun. And then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, again, is Matt okay? Like, what's going on here? I always love the line, if there's anyone there, then make yourself known. It's arrogant to think I'm spinning alone. And I think there's kind of, again, I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways to take that, but I've always felt it was like, you're spinning out of control, and I need to ground myself and realize that I'm not the only one that's feeling like this, and, there's a lot of people. I'm not unique in my misery, and I don't know, I just always found that kind of profound. I don't know, he's really good with his lyrics. Like, he's so fucking talented. I know I've said that before, but this one is one of my favorites.
I like that take on that line, because that's kind of, I think I took it more literally, but I like that take on it, the arrogant to think I'm spinning alone, like he's not the only one that's going through this.
And this song is another one. I know I sound like a broken record here, but totally appreciate what it means to both of you and to a lot of other people, and it just doesn't really land for me. And I think a lot of that is the music, which to me, it is an earworm, like you said, Tara, but not really in a good way. It sounds kind of homogenized to me. I wrote in my notes, it reminds me of late 90s, early aughts alt-rock, but not in a good way. It reminds me of like Vertical Horizon or Savage Garden, like those sort of bands that have songs which get caught in your head, but you sort of hate that they're caught in your head because they're not really that great. It is an interesting lyrical concept. It also strikes me as a little cheesy, and I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. I like the guitar solo at 2.5 minutes in. I like the little left in at the end. I'm glad they were having fun with it. It's one I skipped.
I think what Tara said, though, I think is so true. And I think it's true for like this whole album in general, that some of the songs, the music is so upbeat, but then when you listen to the lyrics, it's like, shit, this is a dark song. And I love music like that. And like the mid 90s, early 2000s alt rock is kind of like a big part of my life, just because that's, coming of age stuff. That's what I was listening to at the end of my high school years and college and stuff like that. So I kind of understand that reference a little bit, but that's kind of part of the similarity to me, is that it does have that a little bit of a feel, because they were very big into upbeat music with very heavy lyrics. And that's, I get what you're saying with that, because this is kind of does have that feeling a little bit. I never really thought about it before.
I don't mind that. I just wish the music was more interesting. It's got a little bit of a throwback sound. It's definitely poppier than a lot of his.
Oh, yeah.
I say it's poppier than a lot of his music, but I think this is the third straight song I've said that on. So this is just kind of his poppier album.
Whole album is poppier than the rest of his. Yeah. Like the music for this album doesn't really have a distinct genre. Like, it's not folk, it's not prog, it's not jazz.
Not jazz,
really.
Even though it's got jazz influences.
It's got some jazzy influences. Even the cover suggests that it's jazzy. The cover photo of the album, but it's not really overtly jazzy. It doesn't have really a genre. I mean, you could probably put it in pop rock. That would be probably the fit all genre to it. And this song definitely is the most pop rock thing, I think.
Bummer pop rock, where you're like, oh, it's so fun, but also this is fucking depressing.
Yeah.
I give it a 4 out of 5. I really love that song.
I gave it a billion, because it really is like, it's like nice. My theme song. If I walk into a room, this is the song that's gonna play.
Yeah.
And sorry to trash your theme song, but I gave it a 2.5.
Oh, gosh.
Same as One by One. I don't hate it. It's not actively offensive. It just kind of blends into the background for me.
That's okay.
It's not the theme song I would assign you, because you don't blend into the background for me, Jesse.
Thank you. Thank you. That's nice.
But, I've said before, for those of you who are devoted listeners, you're probably well aware that I prefer Matt's music at its most psychedelic. This song really downplays the psychedelia a lot. It's still there, but it's a lot more understated than his previous albums and some of the albums which are to come. And yeah, it just doesn't work for me on that level. It is one of the reasons that I really love this next song coming up, Seasons on Fire, which is one of my favorites on the album.
So I'm told I've things to do before I'm old. All I am is standing still. I'm far too chicken to move. Sing the song of moving on. Dream of light in constant night. When I think of you, I always go to pieces. Love somebody new. Chance of that just decreases. My season's on fire. Everything looks like wasteland. Brown covers my town, leaving me deep in quicksand.
This song is really elaborately produced. There's chiming guitars, there's synths. But what really makes this song for me is this monster chorus. It's the moment that the song kind of builds and then goes into this giant anthemic chorus is one of my favorite moments in Matt's music. I love the lyrics here about regret, about fear of commitment, that feeling, Jesse, you already spoke to, about feeling stuck. I think more than the other songs in this album, this is what really nails that feeling for me. My only quibble at all is a total nitpick, and that is that I always cringe when he sings about being far too chicken to move. Just like, you couldn't come up with better wording. You couldn't find a better adjective there than chicken. It just makes me think of something kids would say on a playground.
That's fair.
That is a small nitpick in what's really a fantastic song for me.
I actually really love that line. The music on this one is just chef's kiss. Beautiful. I love it. But it really is. The line, I have things to do before I'm old. All I am is standing still. I'm far too chicken to move. It just screams to the issues that he has with fear and anxiety and strangling ambition. And I understand that so well. I've just dealt with that my whole life. So I understand that feeling tremendously well. And then he says, the part where he says, dream of light and constant night is just freaking poetry. It's just poetry. That's perfect. I love that line so much. And the whole thing just becomes like kind of a love song. He's like pining for someone from your past that you either can't have or that
you missed your opportunity on. That's
yeah, exactly. A missed opportunity.
You're far too chicken to move.
Right.
Things rush in, so I'm told.
Yep, exactly.
And now the window's closed.
Right, exactly. And then like nothing else matters then. There's also like a really, really nice guitar solo towards the end. And it's just, the music on this one is just really, really beautiful.
You've all said it very eloquently, but I agree. I really like this song, and I don't know why this or The Peach and the Melon wasn't chosen as one of the singles. I think that those are the best, well, top three for sure on the album. I give it a 4.5.
Peach and the Melon I get because
yeah.
the lyrics are just so esoteric and so all over the place.
The Peach and the Melon, I think, is probably the most kind of niche. This one, though,
it should have been.
Yeah. This one, you could play it on any station. You could play it on pop or adult contemporary or anything. Yeah. This could be a big hit. And
how is he not on the radio ever? Like, maybe he's on the radio in the UK, but, like, I just don't understand. Like, I listen to, like, the CBC and all these, like, kind of alternative radio stations, and I have never heard Matt Berry, and I guess it has never occurred to me that twists me.
He does get played once in a while on BBC Radio 6, because I got a new car earlier this year, and ever since I got Android Auto, which is Just a
okay.
godsend. I've listened to pretty much exclusively BBC Radio 6 if I'm not listening to Spotify. And they have played him once in a while, which makes me really excited. But that's a very, very niche-y station that plays a lot of, like, kind of underground and experimental stuff. And I guess
we
that's
have
still...
that. Yeah, we have that here, the CBC, and I've heard, like, really kind of weird songs on there that I've ended up following and, you know, listening to after. And no, it literally just occurred to me, like, why the fuck are they playing Matt Berry? I'm gonna send them emails.
I thought that was gonna happen with Beatmaker. Beatmaker is such a freaking jam. If any radio station picked up on that here, I think it would have been huge. But he's just under the radar.
It doesn't sound contemporary. Like,
I
his
think
stuff...
all
all
his
of
stuff,
it sounds like a throwback. And I think that just is, like, of limited appeal to radio programmers.
Well, and, like,
that
the
it
music
sounds so
industry
retro.
is just all fucked. Like, it's just all bullshit, and it's all, like, it's nonsense. Like, it's not actually, in most of the cases, good musicians. It's just, you know, what they kind of have to play. So, I don't listen to the radio very much, if you can tell.
I have satellite radio, and it usually just stays on the classic vinyl channel, and that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Or Spotify. That's about it. Those are the only two things I listen to in the car. But, yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts on this one?
No.
Just that I wish he would change that one line, and then it would be perfect. As it is, it's a 4.75 for me.
That's good. Hey.
Really good. I
See,
gave
I'm
it...
not always negative. Sometimes I like
No.
things.
I gave this one 5 stars.
I think I already rated it, right? 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what you would change the fart too chicken to move. Because I think that's, what
Far
he
too
would...
frozen to move? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of different
Frozen?
words you could use.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's the BAFTA-nominated writer. I'm
True.
not.
Yeah, we're not.
Not our job, man.
No.
So then we move on to Night Terrors. Well, we could have guessed that one, Tara.
It's like, is it 9 minutes and 51 seconds? Like, it is too long.
It is an upbeat instrumental jazz piece.
Oh, it sure is.
And there's lots of different parts to it, which kind of feel like a chapter of a book, or like phases of sleep or dreaming, or including night terrors.
Yeah.
I'm not typically a big fan of jazz. I like that this one is like sectioned out though, because that keeps it feeling really interesting and fresh sounding. So I do really, really like that about it. I always like Matt's instrumental music. I think it's just really interesting and cool. There's also a really fantastic trumpet solo in this. That's the one musical piece that stands out to me the most, is there's a really amazing trumpet solo. There's a lot of great solos in it, but that one really stands out to me when I listen.
Yeah, we had
There's
mentioned at the very start of this episode, when we were talking about the guest kind of brass players on this album, that they show up in a few tracks. They show up in the one after this as well, but this to me is like where the guest musicians really shine and make the track in a lot of ways. You completely took the words out of my mouth as far as this feeling like shifts in a dream state. That's exactly what I wrote too. Where it feels like there's these chapters, but they kind of flow organically into each other.
Yeah.
There's kind of this slight feedback and distortion that leads from piece to piece, but it doesn't feel choppy at all. It creates a feeling of transition. It goes from pretty structured to pretty chaotic in the middle. Yeah, it just really captures the feeling of night terrors pretty perfectly. I'd love to know how much of this was written versus how much was improvised.
Yeah, it sounds like a jam session, but it's too structured for that in a way. Unless that was done in editing, because...
I think it probably came out of heavy jam sessions. I think that's probably
It could be.
more likely.
Yeah, because I don't know how you would demo something like this and say, here, this is what I want. But James Sedge did say that it came from, the idea for it was inspired by Bitches Brew. I haven't listened to that song, which I probably should have, to see what the comparisons were. But I think
It's a full album. It's a full-length jazz album.
Oh,
by
that's a
Miles
full
Davis.
album?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be tough. I've never been a huge fan of jazz. I like things with jazz elements to it, but I've never been a huge fan of jazz. With that being said, though, I do really, really like this song, and I think it's a really big achievement for somebody who, this is not their forte. Like, jazz is not something that he does. That's not that we know of anyway. Like, I know he appreciates it and he likes it, but it's not something that he's ever done musically on any of his albums. So I think it's a really big achievement to do a song like this and have it turn out so well.
Totally agree.
Nah, it's not great.
Really, all you had to say was, it's over 9 minutes long. It's nearly 10 minutes long.
It's like way over 6 minutes, which is like my cutoff, so...
I
I've listened
will,
to it.
Tara, agree that this song might be a little over long.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he could have trimmed 3 or 4 minutes off and it still would have stood on its own.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I just, like, I don't dig it. When it comes up on the vinyl or if it comes up on Spotify, I'm like, skip. But I don't hate it. Like, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Like, it's good. Like, I get what he's doing, and he's good at what he's doing. I just don't dig it. Again, like we've discussed a million times, I have a very short attention span, so...
I have a workout playlist that I had all of his music on, and I took out a lot of the instrumental stuff because it's not great for working out to, but this one I actually left on because it's very upbeat, and I think for me it's a little bit energizing.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely leans into the swingier side of jazz. Like, it's interesting that he quotes or cites Bitches Brew as an influence, because to me it doesn't sound that much like Bitches Brew. It sounds almost like he'd been listening to a lot of old swing. I know in an interview around the same time he quoted or cited the Stan Tracy Quartet, Starless and Bible Black. He cited that as a song he was listening to a lot and as an influence. And if you go back and find that track on Spotify or what have you, you totally hear it. This is 4 stars for me. I love that he went there. I love the idea of it. I do think it's a little overlong and maybe gets a little repetitive in points, but it's still a really, really impressive piece of music.
4 stars for me, too.
Yay.
I'm curious if we're going to agree on this next track. The next one is not just one of my favorite songs, probably my favorite song on this album, but one of my favorite songs of Matt's entire catalog, and that is Lord Above.
I've wasted all my time on anything but shine, made to pay the fine. Then you climbing up the tree. It's always about me, but there's nothing there to see. Then you, Lord above, led by your love, lost at sea till you found me.
It's kind of an outlier on this album because it's, first of all, a love song. It's really upbeat. There are not a lot of songs on this album that are upbeat, as y'all have no doubt already pieced together. I kind of really love it for that. It's got this burst of energy. It feels vibrant. It replicates the feeling of being in love. It just nails that feeling of kind of the dizzy early stages of being in a new relationship and just being amazed that you found this person and that they love you back. This was also one of the singles from the album. This is the other song on the album that has a music video, which doesn't really have a whole lot overtly to do with the song. It's an interesting video. We can talk about that in a second. Interestingly, this is one of the singles and not one of the songs that made it to the Gather Up retrospective album last year, which tells me that maybe it's one that Matt doesn't look back as fondly on. A little speculation there, but kind of a discrepancy.
That's funny. I said like the exact same thing. I think overall this one, the lyrics are a little bit more shrouded and not as obvious as some of the others on this album, but overall it seems like the freshness of a new relationship. Like there's less flashiness to the relationship and more substance to it. So I think that comes through really well in this. And it's also very jazzy, like the previous one. Also, we should mention this melody was used in a couple of episodes of Toast of London. It was in season 2, episode 4, the part where he's in the Freemasons Lodge, and actually features Eddie Pillar from Acid Jazz dancing, which is quite literally the only thing I can think of now when I hear this song. I instantly picture Eddie Pillar dancing.
And doing like Northern Soul dancing.
And then it's also in the next episode 2, series 2, episode 5, in the episode where he's buried alive.
One of my favorite Toast scenes.
Yes. It's a really good episode. I like both of those episodes, actually. I like all of them, but those two specifically.
Those two both stand out.
Yeah. It's not exactly the same.
Something that he has said, and this applies to one other song on this album too, is that he will actually write the songs for Toast, and more recently he did this for a song on What We Do in the Shadows, to kind of like work out if he likes the melodies, and then if he really likes the way they're forming, he'll turn them into freeform songs. What we can kind of take from that is that he wrote this song for Toast, liked it, and then turned it into this really like heartfelt love song, which I kind of love.
I think that I might be an idiot because I never got the love song vibe from this at all. And like you guys saying it, I was like, holy, yeah.
But
no,
I get why you would say that. It works on 2 levels. It works as a love song and also as kind of a spiritual song. And when I first heard this, not knowing a whole lot about Matt, I was like, is he singing about his partner, or is he singing about God?
Like being born again.
About the Lord above.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because I think when you listen to it not knowing anything about him whatsoever, I think that's where you would instantly go to be like born again.
I know that Matt doesn't believe in God. So like I'm listening to this and I always just took it as kind of like almost a tongue-in-cheek. Like I think that, and I'm Canadian, so we're, very Catholic and very church kind of focus. So the church has played a big part in my life, even though I don't believe in it. So I always just kind of thought it was kind of about, like, again, just kind of tongue-in-cheek and like something maybe he's observed of people finding hope and beauty and kind of rebirth in God. But I never really took the song very seriously. And again, I never thought it was about a relationship. I just assumed it was kind of not like a satire of religion, but I don't know, something along those lines. Like to me, it's kind of like a Matt thing to be like, people believing in God is kind of all a fucking is bullshit. But it'd be kind of fun to like write this song that's like kind of perky and fun and is about something that I personally don't believe in. So clearly, I don't think I'm right.
We don't know he doesn't believe in God. We know he's not a fan of religion.
Assume. Yeah, I just assume. Like, I assume that, and again, like, you don't know. You can believe in God and not believe in organized religion, but I just kind of, I've always assumed that he's an
You could be agnostic and not atheist.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, there are more religious references in future albums which indicate that he hasn't dismissed religion completely, that it's maybe something he's continued to struggle with or kind of come back to at points. Like a lot of people, just kind of like me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a time we know he was going to church because he was an avid tweeter and he tweeted all the time that he was going to church. And I don't know if that was something that was like leading up to like a baptism or a christening of his niece and nephew and he was like obligated to go, or if there was a time in his life where he like refound religion and then kind of was like stepped away from it again. So I think he struggles with it.
I feel like as an atheist myself that I kind of peg him as that just from, again, you're seeing it from your own kind of perspective. So when I've listened to his lyrics over the years, read interviews and stuff like that, I'm just like, oh yeah, you're an atheist. But that's completely just my own conjecture.
Yeah.
It's not fact.
Well, I mean, and with song lyrics too, unless you're actually saying this is what the song means, everybody's going to interpret it differently.
It's so like, I'm so like on the nose. I don't see the subtleties.
The music is upbeat enough though that I don't personally see this song as tongue-in-cheek, but I get how someone would. I mean, I totally see it. It's not an understated song at all. It's pretty much just all there.
Yeah.
There.
And if you are taking it on its word, it could actually sound like a church hymn almost.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Like, it kind of sounds to me like, like a woohoo, like happy and like, God, you're the greatest above. And like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only one that thought that.
No, I don't
want to hear the rest of that song, Tara.
Yeah. That'll be on the small hours too.
Yeah. Takeout version.
Small hours redux.
Hours,
yeah. Did Gerard
Smaller
George...
hours.
Smaller. Even more small hours. Did
smallester.
Gerard Georgie Cole direct this video also? Seems like it kind of has his thumbprint on it.
Yeah, I believe so.
This
Second,
video,
I can confirm that.
I actually forgot that there was a video for this song.
I don't think I've seen it.
It has really
Really?
nothing to do with the song. It actually kind of reminds me of the Take My Hand video, as far as he went in a completely different direction with it. It's a guy rowing a boat, mostly.
Rowing a boat and lugging
yeah.
around a big case,
Yeah.
which he eventually takes to a church and kind of kneels in front of the altar, and there is a very prominent shot at the end of a cross. So take from that what you will. That maybe
I do remember it now. Very kind of like dreary day.
indicates
kind of
a
thing.
more favorable view of religion, but the video itself is also
Yeah.
pretty abstract. Like, it's also pretty
Very.
open to interpretation.
This is another one like the Take My Hand video, is that I don't know if it was intended to be an official music video for the song, or if it was something that he, as in the director, wanted to do on his own as more of like a short film kind of, because it has that same kind of short film vibe that the Take My Hand video
totally.
does. So I
It's a very good point.
yeah, I don't know
It's
if
very well made too, the video.
it
yeah.
is. It is. It just doesn't. I think when I think of a music video, I don't like to think too much. I also am not a fan of music videos to begin with. I'm not an MTV girl, but they always kind of bored me for some reason. But when I do see a music video, I like for them to be with the singer or the band or whoever actually in them singing.
We're telling a story that you relate personally to the song and not something, I don't know, I find I get kind of pissed when I watch a video and I'm like, that's not what I imagine. I wish I hadn't seen this.
Yeah, kind of like that. Overall, what do we give for Lord Above?
I give it 3 out of 5. It's alright.
This is one of my favorite of Matt's songs, so of course it's a 5 out of 5 for me.
Aww.
I gave it 3.5.
Yeah!
It's not, I don't dislike it in any way whatsoever. I just think that it really, when I hear it now, all I think of is Toast of London, and I don't think of the actual song.
Yeah.
Because that's just the image now that pops into my head, which it sucks because although I love Toast, it kind of ruined the song for me.
I'm curious if that's the case with the next song we're going to talk about as well, because this next song, spoiler, it's Obsessed and So Obscure, is also used in an episode of Toast, and also presumably was written for that episode of Toast. But you might not have that association because this song is also the title inspiration for our podcast.
It is our namesake.
We've reached it.
We've reached it finally. I didn't think this day was going to come, to be honest. It's been such a journey.
It really has.
An unexpected and wild ride. We've learned so much.
Surprising a lot of people, I think.
I think it is too. Yeah, we've picked up some steam lately. I don't know. I think we've hit our groove. There's the second part of the Midnight Chats podcast interview where Matt talks about this song specifically, and he says it comes from nightmares that forced him to wake up and say, "Thank Christ that's not real." He said they're either about heights, being executed / being told you're going to die, or in a recurring dream that he has, he's in medieval times and found a laser gun and questioned what to do with it. Also having your head cut off, but still being able to watch it all.
And just as an aside, it seems like Matt's, if not biggest fear, at least one of his more excruciating fears is of heights. This is something that's come up over and over as kind of a talking point in the interviews for What We Do in the Shadows, because obviously for the premise of that show, he has to do a lot of wire work and be up high. And this man seems to really hate heights. But this, of course, was a few years before all of that, and he's singing about having nightmares where he's 100 feet up.
Fear of heights is not a fear that... It's probably a rational fear, but not a fear that I've ever had. Never been afraid of heights.
Me neither. I don't love heights. My family made me go to the top of, what is that tower in Toronto? It was like the world's tallest tower for CN Tower, maybe?
Yeah.
I've been to the top of that, and I was not a fan. There's like this... You've probably seen pictures of it. This like thick glass observation deck that you can stand on.
Oh yeah, no,
and
I don't
took like
like
a
that.
very ginger step on and then like immediately stepped off.
I definitely don't
did it
like
to say I
that.
could do it.
Yeah, no, I don't like those
Yeah.
those glass floors. Not a fan of that at all. Because I just feel like, why? Why am I putting myself through that? But as far as like roller coasters and going to the top of like the Empire State Building and climbing a ladder or like a lighthouse or something, It's never bothered me.
No, me neither.
Afraid of heights at
I
all.
wonder how that works for Matt on airplanes, since he obviously
I always
flies a
wondered
lot
that
with what he
too.
does.
Yeah, I always wondered how the fear of heights works for stuff like that too. I guess it kind of depends on how bad your fear is. I would think with doing all the stunt work and stuff for what we do in the shadows, he's probably either taken some Xanax to get over it or like become more used to it. I don't know.
I remember, and it was just like an aside, but I know you and I both analyze every line of what we do in the shadows interviews
Yeah.
with a magnifying glass. But I remember one interview where Kevin Novak said it's like an aside, well, you've gotten a lot better lately, haven't you? So I think he might have just gotten used to it.
Maybe. Yeah. I would imagine if if it's something you're forced to do on a regular basis, you'd have to either shit or get off the pot.
Still makes me feel sad for him.
That he's scared to
Because he
do
can
something.
cry into the stacks of money that he's making from shadows.
Right, exactly.
Obsessed and so obscure, I felt my head decapitate without a sense of it all. I'm stuck between two trees. I must have been 100 feet, but had no fear of it all. I think my heart now beats for three. You and me and Christopher Lee. I'm paid to aid escape, but where the hell am I to go to get away from it all?
This song is awesome. Like, it's literally our namesake. Because we were all thinking,
Yeah.
we're like, oh, I was like, we gotta do something with a song. And then when you had mentioned Obsessed and So Pure, I'm like, oh my god, yeah, because like the intro is like, it's perfect too. Like I hear the intro now when I was listening to this over and over again to research this. I was like waiting for the like, hey, this is the episode whatever of Obsessed
Yeah.
and So Obscure, you know?
And,
Yeah.
and the reason we picked that is because, and I don't know if that's like the actual meaning behind it for like that was his intent, but I literally think the meaning of Obsessed and So Obscure is like how he mentioned in one of those previous interviews, or I don't know, maybe I might be imagining that, but that people are either kind of like obsessed with him or don't know who he is at all. So there's like no gray area. People are either love him or have no idea. And that was kind of, I take that literally, even though I'm not sure if that's what his actual meaning of Obsessed and So Obscure is.
I like that.
And there's more gray area
although-
now, even since we started that.
Yeah,
but-
that's starting to change.
Yeah.
All
And,
of
like,
my
I'm
friends
happy
know who
for
he
him.
is, which wasn't
Yeah,
true a
like
year
I'm
ago.
happy for him, but it's kind of like also a little bit weird for me because like it's been I don't know how many years, like 15 years of like knowing who he is, and like I always kind of been obsessed with him, so it's kind of weird to have somebody that you kind of, I don't know, you kind of keep it close to your chest almost. You're like, I know about this great thing and nobody else knows it. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's
everywhere.
and he deserves it. Like he deserves
Right.
it. Don't get me wrong, but
I know.
a little
It's
bit of an
very mixed
adjustment.
feelings. And I kind of probably think that's the same for him, too, is that he's really happy that more people know about his work. But at the same time, that means more people know about him.
Yeah.
And he's very private. So how much longer can he keep up just going to a pub and, not being inundated with people?
Yeah, well, I'll find out because I'm going to Just for Laughs, and I kind of think that, well, we all kind of think that he might make an appearance there because some of the people he's friends with are doing it. So I'm thinking that he won't go because I think that he knows that he'll be caught out and, like, kind of bombarded now, but we'll see.
They'll have to peek and see if there's a VIP area.
Oh, I will be peeking everywhere. My husband is going to be so pissed off and be like, okay, well, I just gotta go over here, and I just gotta go over here, and I gotta, like, take a look. He'll probably leave me
It
behind
seems like,
and be
though,
like, you
he's
just come
still... And I had said this to Jesse not that long ago, that I think being in London, where he lives at least part of the time, like, it's pretty metropolitan, it's pretty cosmopolitan, obviously one of the more cosmopolitan cities in the world. Like, I think people are just jaded. I think it's like how in New York and LA, two places I've never lived, but apparently you see celebrities all the time, and
Yeah.
you might be impressed by it, but you don't want to be the person who's publicly impressed by it, because that's not cool. You don't want to be the person asking
Yeah.
for selfies. I think London might kind of be the same way, and that's what allows him to live a fairly anonymous life for a celebrity.
Yeah,
It's true.
you do see pictures pop up every once in a while
Yeah.
of people stopping him for a selfie, and he always seems very happy to oblige. I think it's just mostly like he hates when people like yell things at him, which I would not blame
Yeah.
him for that.
Although
Catchphrases
even
from
then
15
he
years
said
ago.
he said that he doesn't mind it because it means that the show is doing well and that
Yeah.
people are watching it. I think that might be kind of a gracious, like, playing politics line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think he actually feels that way, but that's his public line, is that he's okay with people yelling stuff too.
He's gotten into trouble is that every show he's been in, he has a catchphrase.
Yeah.
How often does that happen? And it's happened to him multiple times. Like, he's got Whiskey from Snuffbox, and he's got Father from IT Crowd,
And fuck you from Snuffbox.
Fuck you from Snuffbox.
The boyfriend line. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My husband literally, if somebody ever says like, "Oh, I'm just gonna have a whiskey," my husband and I, it's the racist who's gonna say whiskey,
Right? And now he's got Bat. So
yeah.
and even I don't remember if I mentioned this before, but I wore I have one of those T-shirts that just have the names of the characters from What We Do in the Shadows, and I was at Epcot. And I was coming out of a place and somebody just yelled "Bat," and I was like, "The fuck!" It's like, oh, because you don't think about it, I wasn't thinking about the fact that I was wearing that shirt, and and I'm like, don't yell things at people because that's startling.
Oh, I would be
Jesse
the
and
same
I have
way if I saw
established-
that shirt.
I have that same shirt, which I wear all the time, and that has not yet happened to me.
Huh.
I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed by that.
Yeah.
I do get very excited though when people, because it's not overtly What We Do in the Shadows. It just says Nandor and Nadja and Laszlo and Colin Robinson, but not you, Guillermo. I think that's what it says, right?
Oh.
It is.
So, unless you watch the show, you have no idea what it means. But I always do get very excited when somebody's like, "I love your shirt." I'm like, thanks. Yeah.
I have
Thanks,
3
friend.
What We Do in the Shadows shirts now, all of which are in regular rotation.
That's
It's a
the only
lifestyle
one I
choice
have.
I've made.
I actually wore it yesterday. But don't yell things
Nice.
at people, because it's not nice. Back to the song. He says, there's another line in the chorus. It's, "My heart now beats
I
for
think
3.
my heart now beats for 3.
Yeah, you and me.
You and me.
Christopher Lee.
And Christopher Lee.
And then the
Or
end
the
is the
BBC,
BBC. And the
Yeah.
BBC. And this line always confuses me. I kind of think, the Christopher Lee part that I don't get. But you and me and the BBC, I would say that was like, they kind of own a piece of me. Like, my television stuff is kind of like, I'm split 3 ways. I don't know what the Christopher Lee reference is. It would make more sense if he wrote that song now than before, because then it would have a vampire reference, but I don't know what the Christopher Lee meaning is to it.
Yeah, that's obviously something that's personal to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not getting out. He has talked in more than a few interviews about how he is a big fan of Christopher Lee and the Hammer horror films, but connection is anyone's guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then this song also, as Courtney mentioned before, was another Toast of London song. This one was in season 2, episode 2, Desperate Measures, where they're in the woods roasting a fox. This one always cracks me up.
That's what it gets for eating his pizza.
Yeah.
I love that he takes it off the spit and he's like, "Run!" That part always makes me laugh so hard. So Thomas Walsh of Pugwash provides Ray Purchase's singing voice in this, and Neil Hannon of The Divine Comedy provides the voice of Norris Flipjack. So Ray Bloody Purchase and Norris Flipjack are voiced collectively by the Duckworth-Lewis method, which I think is really cool.
Nice.
Yep.
It is. And I kind of love the lyrics to that alternate version in Toast. Like, if you've watched Toast, it's no big secret that a lot of the songs on it are kind of a little more heartfelt than the overall tone of the show. Like, they kind of get inside the character's psyche. And this is the song where they sing, or Toast sings, "I wish I was dead or on TV." And they reply, "That's the kind of success you'll never see." And, it gets me.
Yeah.
So sad.
That's the thing about Toast, man. It's like, he's so unlikable, but you still root for him. And then the songs are like his subconscious, so that makes you root for him even harder. It's just such a brilliant show in that way. You said
Really is.
this is what you think about now when you hear the song, is you think of Toast?
I think of the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do too,
Yeah.
obviously.
That
Yeah.
small part of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No.
so
I can't hear the song on its own anymore, which is a shame because it's a really, really good song.
it is a really, really good song.
It
I can
is.
still hear it on my own. Especially, like, this one, as far as, like, Toast goes, doesn't I like this one more, obviously. Obviously, I think of the podcast now because it has become an obsession. But yeah, I gave this one 5 stars. I love it.
Well, I was 4.75.
And I gave it 4.5. It's the most interesting song to me on the album lyrically, for all the reasons that we've just unpacked. But it feels a little chaotic. It feels like a little bit like he wanted to jam all this music and all these guitars and all these words in. And especially lyrically, sometimes it feels like kind of what we spoke about at the beginning. Like he built the song around the lyrics, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And it's a little busy, but I can excuse it that because it just feels like a little peek into his mind. And it is very, very catchy.
Yeah, the music on this one is so good. The music on this one is better than the lyrics, I think. And that doesn't happen very often on this album.
And it ends with an outro around 3 minutes, 12 seconds in, which I wanted to note just briefly because it kind of feels like a different song. Like, to me, that outro sort of recreates a dreamlike state. It's kind of a cool transition into the next song.
Or, in our case, into the next episode, because it is on every episode of our podcast, the outro for the song. So moving on to Wounded Heart. So it seems like the relationship from 2 songs ago, which was so bright and new and warm and fuzzy, has now ended because we're back to melancholy.
Wounded heart, how to heal a wounded heart, lost at sea and in the dark. Who knows where this ends? Torn apart, my whole world has been torn apart. Clear as day now, abstract art. Who knows how it ends? You tore through me like fire at a Grand Prix, and I knew you won. The deal was done. So how to heal my heart?
He starts with torn apart, my whole life has been torn apart, clear as day, now abstract art, who knows how it ends. And I really, really, really love that line, clear as day, now abstract art, because it's like your life was in focus for a brief time, but now it's kind of like a jumble again, like an abstract art, an abstract painting. I think that's like just pure poetry. Then he says,
But it's a mixed metaphor. If it's clear as day, then it should be compared to another weather phenomenon. I have issues with this song.
you have issues with mixed metaphors, apparently. I was like, whatever. I think it's poetry, and you're like, it's a mixed metaphor.
How dare he?
Can't all be undergraduate English majors.
Clearly. He said, you tore through me like a fire at a Grand Prix, and for some reason, every single time I hear that line now, it always makes me think of Roy in the IT crowd saying, a fire at Sea Parks.
Parks.
Yeah.
I can say it in my head way better than I say it out loud, but I don't know. Every single freaking time I hear that line, that's what I think of. Also,
I like
it's
that line, though. That's a great line.
It is a good line. It's also interesting with this song, the music starts completely abruptly at full volume. And then the vocals are a little echoey in the chorus section too, which is interesting. And then there's like a nice little guitar solo in there also.
Yeah, this song doesn't really grab me in any way. Like, I like some of the lyrics. I don't, like, dislike it a lot, like, or anything. I don't hate it, but I don't really care for this song all that much, honestly.
Yeah, it's another one that gets skipped for me. I agree, Jesse, that the production's kind of interesting. Like, that's really the only interesting thing about this song to me. It feels a little bit more like a song sketch than a fully formed song. It's pretty short. I think it's just over 2 minutes, and it feels very slight. And yeah, the lyrics don't really work for me. The fire at a Grand Prix is just like a weird simile that, like, Grand Prix? Okay, sure.
I get that there's fires at Grand Prix, like cars explode and stuff, but does it like tour tear through you like that. Maybe it's just because it's like an explosion, sort of.
Was there not there was a big, I don't know if it was the Grand Prix or not, but in France, I think it was France, there was a big fire and like a big accident that killed, I want to say 70 spectators or something. So I always pictured like that, which is like, oh, geez, that was terrible. That accident happened and the car tore through and decapitated a bunch of people. It was really gruesome. So I always imagined that, because I don't know of any major accident in the UK or like in Europe that could relate to that.
I think I know what you're talking about. I watched Paul Hollywood's he did this show on Netflix, like Big Continental Road Trip or something like that, because he's a really big car guy, and he kind of just traveled around and talked about like their famous cars from different countries in Europe, and I think he talked about that.
Matt's talked in interviews about his dad being really into cars.
Yeah,
so maybe he grew up exposed to a lot of that.
It's
maybe
very
it is
possible.
A specific reference in his mind. Odd for someone who can't drive, but we've already.
I know. I was literally just thinking about that the other day. I think it was when because in the Midnight Chats pod. Oh, no. It was in the Two Shots podcast. I was listening to that again to see if there was any reference to the small hours. And he asked Matt what his parents did. And he said, my mom was a nurse and his dad did a bunch of different things, usually revolving around cars. I'm like, what does his dad think about the fact that he can't drive a car?
If you want to get really obsessive,
disappointed,
which of course we all do, if you look at the kind of panoramic shots of Matt's studio that Ben Meadows took, I think around the recording of The Blue Elephant, like on his mixing desk, under his computer next to Zippy from Rainbow, there's a couple of model cars.
Yeah.
So they have like this place of honor on his mixing desk.
Aww.
Clearly it means something to him.
Right.
And he can't drive.
It's really confusing. Yeah. So I give this one 4 stars, and really the bulk of that is because of the aforementioned mixed metaphor that Courtney doesn't like. I really, really like that line. I like the music for this one too, but I really think some of the lyrics in this are very poetic, other than "You tore through me like a fire at Grand Prix."
This song just hasn't made much of an impression on me one way or the other. It feels very much like an album cut. I'd say 2 stars.
I give it 2.5, and it only got the 2.5 because I really like the "You tore through me like fire at a Grand Prix," because again, it's kind of nonsense at the same time as that it's probably factual. It's from something he saw. It doesn't really
it's something like
really.
He gets it, but nobody else really will.
Yeah, which I like. I like that.
Literally,
so much on this album.
Literally, there was like extra 1.5 to 2 stars just because Clear as Day is now abstract art.
Yeah,
I have no emotional connection to the song. So then we get to the title track, The Small Hours, which is just tucked at the very end. And you actually, half the time I forget it's even on here, which is funny.
It's the hours in between that I have doubt. It's the mist in the trees when the fear mounts. It's the edge of the dawn when I feel low. It's the grey light that pours through the window. All combined with the strength of being alone.
This is another song like Say It Again that's just straight, pure melancholy. It's just full of feelings of self-doubt and dread and anxiety and worry and panic. And these feelings, I don't know if anybody else's, I think Courtney mentioned that she has felt this. They always hit hardest in those wee hours of the morning. And it is the worst feeling in the entire world because you're stuck in bed. You're either not sleeping or you've just woken up and your brain instantly fires on. And you're just completely alone in your thoughts, thinking about all these things from your past, like things you've said, shouldn't have said, should have said, things that you've done that you regret, and you're just stuck there in your thoughts while the rest of the world is sleeping, and there's just absolutely nothing you can do about it. It just feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, even like with little tiny things that would never feel like an issue during the daylight hours. Just at that time in the small hours is how he refers to it, which is, you know, that time just before dawn or in the middle of the night, and it just even the little things feel super monumental.
Matt's spoken in interviews around this album. I know he speaks in that at Midnight Chats podcast that we've referenced a whole bunch, but talks about how those moments where he's lying awake, he tends to go towards like regrets from the past, things that he wishes he had done years ago, things he wishes he had said to people. I totally get that. I'm the same way. Those nights I can't sleep, I just replay my whole life, and it's like sliding doors. Like, I just said the right thing. If I just been a little more charismatic or a little smarter that one time.
What if I had done this? What would that have led to? And yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, those completely useless thoughts that don't bring you any further in your life, but you just obsess over. The lyrics of this one I just think are really amazing. I find them kind of profound. I don't know. I really like this song. Like you guys, I don't have to go over it again. I'm sure most people kind of can relate to that and those obsessive kind of thoughts that come to you. And Matt talks about them a lot, so he is very much familiar with them.
I'll just put it out there that I'm not a fan of this song. It's probably, even more than Say It Again, my least favorite song on this album, which makes it by extension one of my least favorite songs he's ever done. I wasn't as down on this album as I thought I might be going in, but it's by far my least favorite of Matt's discography. But it does capture that feeling well. It's kind of feels gray, kind of has like a droning Twilight feel, very repetitious. Ultimately, though, it's just not that pleasant to listen to. And I might catch some flack here again, but I'm just not convinced that it's really much of a song. It feels like a sketch or kind of a half-formed demo. It's a fitting note to end the album on. It feels drab, it feels bleak. I just wish it was a better song.
How many stars do you give it?
1.
God.
Oh, that's
1 star.
And I'm gonna flip that, and I gave it 5 stars, and it's just because sometimes you just need a really good bummer song, first of all, but second of all, this is a feeling that I've dealt with my entire life, and it just hits me very hard when I hear this song. It's just like, God, it just feels really amazing to have something just summed up so perfectly. There's somebody else that feels this way too and has dealt with this enough that he's put it into a song.
musically there's not much going on here, really truly. It's the lyrics that really grab me. I gave it a 3 out of 5. We're all kind of from the worst to the best to the right in the middle.
Yeah, we all have like very different opinions of it. I just think it's funny because overall this, Matt's music is usually so music driven. And I think it's always been very clear that he writes music and adds lyrics later. And this one I think is the complete opposite. Like he definitely got a lot of heavy feelings off his chest, wrote a lot of lyrics, and then put it to music, which I think probably most songwriters do. I think he probably usually takes the opposite approach of what most songwriters actually do. But I think as a result of that, I think this is, for me, his overall best lyric writing on any of his albums. I just think I think it's pretty perfect. I love the upbeat music with dark lyrics is something that I've always liked, and it's really fits on this one so well. It just, sometimes you just need a really good bummer album.
He's got a few of those down the pipeline for me. They're coming. No spoiler, you're going to hear a lot of love for the Blue Elephant down the line. And it also hit me when I was like sitting at home with a broken foot, barely able to move, feeling pretty bummed about life in general. Yeah. So I completely get that. I'm sure you'll hear more of that story later on. This one just misses the mark for me. Are we giving star ratings to the album as a whole?
Oh yeah, we totally can. I give the whole thing, I give it a 5 stars.
I give it a 3.75 out of 5. I really like it, but it's not my favorite. It's my top 5 from him, I guess.
And I would say about 2.75. The parts where it really works, but even more than that, I just appreciate what he's doing with it. I appreciate that he tried something new. I appreciate the circumstances under which this was written, because he was, we talked earlier about how he was like kind of getting started as an actor during some of the earlier albums, and by this point, he had won a BAFTA, getting some lucrative guest star gigs and doing a lot of ad work, and he made this album in the midst of that. I think that's probably part of why it feels kind of disjointed to me, is because unlike an album like The Blue Elephant that he kind of wrote in one go, this was probably written in bits and pieces when he had the time, when he was able to kind of sit down and work out songs. That's of course speculation, but I kind of feel that disjointedness. That being said, it's very cool that he did it, and especially that he did it when his public profile was kind of rising.
That's a good point. Yeah. Where we had to even make him more vulnerable is that people actually like really knew more about him, and he released this super raw album. I wonder if it also seems like maybe some of the lyrics could have been bits and pieces of like journal entries too, that's how personal some of them seem.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that.
All right, we're all over the map. I kind of thought that's where it would be. And I kind of think that this album is like that for everybody. I think it's one of those that you either really, 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 really love it, or you're like, meh, not a huge fan. So, and I think that also brings us to our burning question for Matt, you know, other than the whole Manson thing. That's my personal burning question.
Yeah.
But our official burning question for Matt is, we know that you didn't have exact control musically because this was recorded with the band. And because of that, it didn't really fit the image in your head, because you've mentioned that. But what specifically with this album, if you had the chance to go back and do it again, what exactly the image didn't fit and what you would change if you could go back and do it again? So I think we've done it. Was there anything else that we wanted to discuss on this, or are we good? We're going to let it go.
I think we're gonna let it go.
Let it go.
I'm glad to have this one done. I've had these, like, nightmares about people sending me hate mail. Like, you're not a real fan.
We don't
So,
ever
please be
agree
kind.
on everything. I think there's been like maybe one song we've all agreed on this whole time. So, you know, and that's
That rain came down?
Yeah.
maybe. I was thinking that we all liked, but yeah, you're probably right. So that'll do it for the Small Hours, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks to discuss what's sort of like the companion album for the Small Hours, which is Night Terrors. As always, we will attach all of the links to everything that we discussed, all the interviews and YouTube, and so you too can learn more about Mrs. Wagner's Pies in the description for the episode. And make sure you are following us on social media. We are at Obsessed Obscure on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and also we have the Discord channel, which we will also link to if you'd like to discuss with us then. And until next time, we out.